Hi, I'm Michelle Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. And I really kind of do desperately want this job, and yet I would literally be afraid to have it. I think I would just wimp out the whole way. So that's cryptic. Kristy, what's your job title?
I am a paranormal investigator and also co-owner of a haunted museum.
Gosh, okay, so many questions. So excited. Ooh, okay, we're gonna start the basics. Paranormal investigators. Basically, you're a Ghostbuster. That's what I heard.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, talk to me like everybody has seen TV shows and films, etc., etc. Talk to me about reality. Like, what is reality of being a paranormal investigator? Like, what do you do? How do you get paid, etc.?
Okay, so essentially, if you've watched any of the television shows like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures or such, it is a little bit different than what we do. Obviously, TV and film really sensationalizes paranormal investigators, and they have to for an audience base, and that's absolutely fine. But
Absolutely.
so what we do, we're a little bit more involved, if you will, and we actually come at it from a more research perspective, at least my group, Soul Sisters Paranormal. So we will go into a location, and first we do a very deep dive into the historical narrative of that location to see, the background, the historical facts and significance of the location. And then we'll go in and spend anywhere from 8, 10, 24, 48 hours investigating that location with various tools and techniques to see if we can communicate with any resident spirits that may be inhabiting that location.
Okay. Okay. So many questions. Like, I know you just answered one question, but it only opened more. So one of the things that we see always in films, movie, television, what have you, there's always very cool gear. Like, I assume you do not have like don't cross the stream style actual Ghostbusters jetpacks, but how sweet would it be if you did? What are the actual technical tools that you use that are real?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't use proton packs. We don't cross any streams or anything like that. I know. But so we do have some interesting tools. The very first thing that we always take with us on any investigation are voice recorders, just simple Sony voice recorders. And we feel the reason is we take those is because we tend to get a lot of voice anomalies, things that we can't explain, voices when nobody's in the room, or voices of men when we're an all-female team, or children when there's no children around. So we always have voice recorders with us.
So
We
wait, I'm
have
gonna interrupt. I'm gonna interrupt. I'm gonna
Yeah, that's
interrupt
fine.
on the voice recorder because I've heard the little bit of research I did to prepare
Mhm.
that there is a religious debate of sorts between whether or not it needs to be digital or analog. Some
Mhm.
people say it's easier to fake the digital, so it should always be analog. Other people say that the anomalies in the tape for the analog and the fact that they don't hardly make them anymore, so you good luck finding them,
Mhm.
means that it's actually better to have it be digital. What is your answer to both of those things, and where do you guys fall on that?
Well, we use digital voice recorders. To
Okay.
your point, analogs are a little bit more difficult to find, and we have not used those. But I guess the argument can be made that anything can be faked, right? Whether it's digital or analog, there are people out there who say that everything that we captured is fake, and that's fine. If that's your belief structure, absolutely. But for us, we do use the digital voice recorders, and those have been extremely successful for us in, again, capturing things that we just can't explain. For us, it's very easy to put those files on our laptop, and move through them pretty quickly when we're listening to them and reviewing audio. So for us, it's all digital. I do know of a couple teams that have analog voice recorders, and that's fantastic. But for us, it's we just use the digital ones.
Okay. So now that I've interrupted you and you gave me a fabulous answer on that, go back to the rest of your list. We got voice recorders. What else?
Okay, we always wear body cameras, and we do that for several reasons. The first one is because we want a point of view look at what we're seeing, and also to give us a timestamp of where everybody is in the location during the night. So if we capture something in a room that I can't explain while we're watching our evidence, I can cross-reference where everybody else is on the property and make sure that nobody is actually causing that that anomaly. So like kicking a pebble or something like that. So we have body cameras. We have night vision video cameras that we set up in various portions of the property or the building we're investigating. The reason we do that is because we want them to sit stationary during the duration of the investigation. So we essentially have eyes and ears on as much of the location as we can during the night, during that investigation. And then we have tools that are what I would consider specialized for paranormal investigators. We have a device called a spirit box, which generally speaking is an AM/FM radio that very quickly sweeps through frequencies. So when you turn it on and it sweeps through those AM and FM frequencies, it sounds like as it's going, it very rapidly goes through them. The theory is that spirits can use the white noise to communicate with us. So if you're using that somewhere and you capture a full phrase, theoretically that's impossible, because you're going about an eighth of a second is what this transition rate is. So to capture a full phrase is pretty significant when you're looking at our evidence. We have several devices designed to measure electromagnetic energy. Most of them have a light array, so from green to red. And the theory is that spirits are made up of energy. So if you're in a location where there's no power and you don't have anything that transmits power on you, then again, theoretically, these should not alarm in any way. The light array should not go to red. But we've had numerous instances where we'll just set a what we call a K2 meter there on the ground. Again, no power acting upon it, and we'll ask questions, and the spirits will communicate with us by touching that device and amplifying that EMF field, which is pretty significant. And then we have a device called an EDI box, and this is a box that measures vibrations. So we set them on things like stairs or upstairs hallways or something like that, where anything walking would cause a vibration. So theory is if nobody's in that area, there shouldn't be any vibrations. It also has a temperature gauge, again, an EMF meter. So various tools like that. And then we also take into locations what we call trigger items. So these are items that we specifically take with us in various locations, and they're designed to elicit a response from a spirit. So for example, if I go into a location where I know there's the reports of a child spirit, I'll take candy or a teddy bear or a toy car or a toy soldier or something like that, again, designed to really appeal to that spirit. When we went into the West Virginia State Penitentiary, one of the reported spirits there is a guy by the name of Red Snyder. He was a really bad guy in life, murderer, the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood. But during his prison life, he had the vice of watching Days of Our Lives. So we downloaded an episode of Days of Our Lives on our laptop, and we set it in his cell, and we left it run for an hour. And then after that, we came back and we said, "Did you see what we left in the cell for you?" And we captured a male's voice saying yes. And so because of that quote unquote trigger item, I think we were able to form a communication chain with him. So those are the type of things that we use.
So like on some of your videos, I saw that there was one where you were in a gym and you had like basketballs and that kind of stuff out for people. So those are the trigger items.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is a fantastic amount of gear. And like I said, I've watched the videos, I've seen and heard the evidence. I have my own opinion for sure. I guess my first question for you is, you said that you believe that that the theory is, and you're very careful to say that several times, the theory is that spirits are energy. There is so much more to that question.
Okay. Yeah.
Than are spirits energy, what are spirits, etc. So you've been in this space for a while. Talk to me about this is a really personal kind of thing to be into. So talk to me about the personal journey, because it's not just you, it's your sisters, like it's a whole family, you have a mini cult.
I'll tell them you said that. Yep.
That's fine. I have a feeling they'll laugh. Um,
I lead our family cult. I like
there you
it.
go. There you go. Around this. So talk to me about like what is that journey for you to get into this kind of work? And apart from energy, like what are the spirits that you're engaging with to you? Like what does that mean? And what is your belief structure around that?
Okay. So we were born, and again, Soul Sisters is made up of my twin sister and our younger sister, and then
Mhm.
two female family friends. And we were born into a family that we do have a religious belief structure. We are Christians, so we believe in that. But we also were able to form our own opinions about things, scientific things, especially afterlife things. And so for us, we've always had a fascination with the paranormal. We've never had an experience where we like saw a ghost when we woke up one morning and that
Mhm.
led us into this. It was more of a research background, if you will. We all have advanced degrees, so we all have grown up questioning things, questioning why and how. And so we found ourselves in the early 2000s watching those popular television shows that I mentioned, Taps and Ghost Adventures and such. And we said to ourselves, well, why didn't they ask this question? Or why didn't they use this technique? Or if we were there, we would have done this. And so we just kind of, amongst ourselves said, if we ever had the opportunity to conduct a paranormal investigation, that we would jump on that chance. And in 2014, we were taking a girls trip because we all live in different parts of the country. And so we met up in Moundsville, West Virginia, and we had a friend of the family that sat on the board of the West Virginia State Penitentiary, which is one of the locations that is
Mhm.
one of the most haunted in the country. And he said, while you're here, why don't you just take one of your nights and stay in the prison and see if you can communicate with our spirits? And so we said, yeah, let's do this. And so we always go into these locations with a very healthy skepticism of that yes, there may be reports of a quote unquote haunting, but it could be something else, light pollution, noise pollution. And so that first investigation, again, we went in with a very healthy skepticism, but we left with what we felt was very compelling evidence. We heard doors slamming in cell blocks where we weren't present, footsteps running up a stairwell when we had a camera on that stairwell and could verify that nobody was running up that stairwell. We were sitting up in the second floor infirmary in complete darkness, and we were saying things like, it's time to take your medicine, come up and take your medicine. And footsteps were so loud running at us that we were sure that something was going to materialize in front of us, and it never did. And so that really set us on the path to this exploration, if you will, into the paranormal. We decided that if we were going to do this, we wanted to, if we could, to the best of our ability, set a professional bar in this community. And so we came up with our name, we came up with our logo, our theme music, and all of that, because we're already in a subculture, if you will. The paranormal is very much a subculture, and we wanted to elevate that as best we could by using that scientific method, by using those scientific research tools. And so, like I said before, we go in with that healthy skepticism to every location. We do a pre-investigation to see if there's any, train traffic, plane traffic, dogs in the neighborhood, kids in the neighborhood, light pollution of any sort that we could rule out as being paranormal. And once we've done that and we've controlled for that environment as best we could, we're left with what we call the unexplainable. And that's what we present to our audience. And so to answer your second question, I do believe that spirits are made up of energy. If you subscribe to the theory that energy cannot be created or destroyed, then we have to go somewhere. Something happens after this. Again, I'm a Christian. I do believe that there is a heavenly realm after this, but I don't think that everybody ascends at the point of death. I think that most do, but some are compelled to stay here closer to the veil, if you will, for certain reasons, whether that be unfinished business, fear of retribution of the life you led on earth, and you just don't want to find out what's next, or you just can't find that way. And we say that a lot with kids. You just can't find your way to what's next. So those are the three theories that we really operate on, but we go in looking for spirits that we considered human, that they had a human existence, and that those are the ones that we try to communicate with.
So when you started all of this, was it like in my head, here's how I hear this road trip going. Y'all, these people are making bank, pretending like there's some ghosts up in here. If they had any idea about the scientific method, this has already been over with. We'd have already debunked it. we could do this blindfolded and backwards. Am I right? And your sisters were like, absolutely, Kristy. We are the smartest women we know. And then this guy was like, all right, girls, let's throw down. I've got a haunted penitentiary. And you were like, Psh, bring it, homeboy. And you went, and instead of having the bejesus scared out of you like normal, healthy humans, you were like, well, that's fascinating.
Mhm. Yeah.
Let's do this more often.
Yeah, essentially, the first part was a little bit more structured. A little bit more structured than that. We certainly don't think we're better than anybody else or anything like that, or that our education puts us in a different category, if you will. We just have a different technique and a different way of
Sure,
doing
I get
it,
it.
and
Yeah.
that's fine. But pretty much everything else is on point. We went up there and said, okay, let's do this. We stopped by Walmart. We grabbed some voice recorders and a couple of flashlights, and we had our cameras with us at that point. Of just digital cameras and a couple of night vision cameras that we had, and said, let's do this. And it was absolutely fascinating.
So,
Go ahead.
is there some part of you that always kind of secretly hopes that it's a hoax and that you get to debunk it?
Not
Or are you more
hope.
excited when it is like legitimately something you can't explain?
I don't hope for a hoax because I don't want the paranormal community to get that rap. I don't want something to be where, you've got this building and there's hidden microphones or hidden cameras or something like that, because I think that delegitimizes everything that we're really trying to do. I will say that when we go to some of these locations, you can say to yourself, okay, have they thought about this? Have the other people in that have investigated this place, did they take into account that there's a train running through here, or that the street lights, they flicker or something like that, and maybe that could be what causes this. I really don't hope, and nor have we met anybody that on purpose claims to have a haunted location and charges money for that. We haven't met that. We have had instances where we will get called in to go to a private home or a private business, and those are the ones that we really have had the most, I guess, quote unquote, luck debunking. For example, we got called into this guy's business. He was convinced that his place was haunted. He had some night vision video cameras up in his business, in his brick and mortar location, and they kept going off, and he was convinced that it was a spirit playing with them. So he wanted validation of that, so he called us in, said, will you please come investigate my location? And we said sure. And so it's got a large glass storefront, and it's a long, narrow little unit that he had in this strip mall. And so there's mirrors going down the side. He had some display cases, and he had these night vision video cameras up on all the corners and in some of the middle sections of the wall. And so we did our investigation, and we weren't feeling anything. Our equipment wasn't picking up on anything. And so we left some of our night vision video cameras to run through the night, and we left the building and just let them run. And so the next morning I called him and I said, did your cameras experience anything last night? He's like, oh yeah, it was so active last night. And I said, give me the timestamps of when those occurred, and I'm going to cross-reference them with ours. And so when we did that, every single time, what we found had happened was the way his building is positioned, it runs parallel to a road that has a high volume of U-turn traffic. So every time a car turned during the night, the headlights would bounce into his storefront, hit the mirrors, and essentially blind his night vision video cameras. And so that's what he was perceiving as a haunt. And I told him, I don't think you have spirit activity in here. I think if you change the position of your cameras or take the mirrors down, your haunting will go away. And it did. And so that's the type of things we look for. I don't think he didn't purposely try to say,
Sure.
we want you to come in and do this. He legitimately didn't think about it. But that's what we do. We go in and we think about all of the things as best we can, think about all the things that could cause somebody to say this is haunted, and then we control for those things as best we can. And
So,
we've come away with things I just can't explain.
so have you're so calm in talking about this, and like I would not be. Like, I love being scared in a
Mhm.
controlled environment. I
Yeah.
love horror movies. I love haunted houses because you know what? There are firm rules.
Yeah.
They cannot touch me. I am aware that they are actors that I am choosing to allow myself to believe are something else.
Mhm.
Which I'll do. No, thank you, boo. No, God bless y'all for going out there, but that's not gonna be me. You are so calm. How
Oh,
when you are in situ,
mhm.
is it scary, or are you working with like a detached scientific brain and you're analyzing the situation? Like, what is the emotive connection to all of this?
You know, it's actually both. You can't go into a location like a haunted prison or a jail or an axe murder house, hear something and not be startled. But
Right?
for us, it is one of those things that, okay, that just happened, and now let's figure out why. I can honestly say there's never been a location where we've run out screaming or vowed to never go back. To us, it absolutely is fascinating. You know, for example, we were at the Grand Old Lady Hotel in Balsam, North Carolina. So this was a hotel that was built in 1905. It was part of the railway system that ran through the mountains there, and it was very opulent. It's 3 stories. It had 100 guest rooms. It was very affluent people would stop and stay at this hotel for the summers, and so then it started to decline during the 1970s, and then it kind of sat vacant for decades until the current owner took it over, and she's maintained it as it was in its original state. So all hardwood floors, there's no TVs in the building. There's no, there's radios, but no televisions because she wants you to have that connection, right, to the building and other occupants. And so when we investigated it, we had the entire building to ourselves for a weekend, and so we were able to spend 2 full days and 2 full nights sitting there investigating. And it was myself and my twin sister Jenny, and we were with Miranda Young from Ghost Biker Explorations. We were collaborating on this investigation, and so we stayed in the hotel. So we were investigating and we slept in the hotel. And so the second night, after we've had numerous experiences during the weekend, we decided to sleep in a suite that had it was one suite, but it had 2 rooms. So Miranda and but both of the rooms, you could only access both the rooms from one doorway. So one doorway opened into the hall, and then it opened into the interior or the exterior room, and then you walk through a door to go to the interior room. So Jenny and I were sleeping in the interior room. Miranda was sleeping in the exterior room, and she was the closest to the one doorway that opened into the hall. So we had a night vision video camera on the inside of the bedroom and in the hallway. So we had eyes on it the whole night. And so you see us say goodnight, and Jenny and I go into the interior room. You see Miranda get into her bed, and she turns the lights off. And about 20 minutes after we say goodnight, you hear a man on the other side of the door saying, "Please don't go." And that was startling, right? You are in this environment, you know that nobody is in the building, but yet you hear this man outside the door. So it is one of those kind of fight or flight moments, but it's also fascinating. And so we just laid there and said, that there's a man outside our door. Miranda's like, "Yep, that's what I thought." And I said, "Okay." And then we just kind of listened, and we all fell asleep after that.
I can't. I couldn't be that chill about it. So, do you believe that spirit, from what you have seen, do you have evidence that spirits are a danger to people? Because you hear about malevolent spirits, and certainly there's a giant film industry
Mhm,
around malevolent spirits trying to stab you, kill you, hang you, possess you, etc.
mhm.
Do you believe that that's a thing? Do you believe that there is a risk of that? Or do you think that spirits are just like hanging out because they can't cross over and that they're on the other side of the veil and they can't get to us?
Well, I will say that we've never experienced anything malicious. So there are instances where we have heard "get out" or "you're going to die" or something like that. But it's to us, it's the nature of the environment that we're in. Those instances typically occur in prisons or in jails, or in some of the insane asylums that we've investigated. Those are some of the responses that you will get. And again, if you think about it in the historical context, these were not great people in these locations during life. And so if they've chosen to inhabit this location after death, that's not going to automatically make them great people. So that is absolutely fine. When we hear those responses, that's fine. Again, it's chilling when you hear them. When you're listening to our audio, when we go back and review after the investigation, and you think everything is quiet, and all of a sudden you hear a man's voice saying, that's chilling. But nothing has ever affected us or has been malicious towards us in any way. I will say that we do say a prayer of protection before we go into these locations, and we'll say a prayer of protection when we come out. Anything that we have felt that is quote unquote darker, to me, it's negative in the fact that it's just a darker person or a darker energy, if you will. And if we encounter that, we just say, okay, we recognize that this is your space. We're going to leave a voice recorder in here. If you want to communicate with us, this is how you do it. But otherwise, there are other places in this building that we can investigate. We're going to leave you to your space. Now, that being said, I know that demons and demonic entities are very big, especially in Hollywood and to some other paranormal investigators in this community. But for me, demons are not anything that had a human existence. They're the evil to the good and the evil of the world. And I do think that that evil exists. We don't go looking for it. We've never experienced it. I know other paranormal investigators have experienced it, but we don't. And I think it's because we don't go looking for it. We generally, when we go into a location, we always say, we're here to tell your story. And that's legitimately what we're there for. And so anything other than that, we just don't mess with. We don't provoke. We don't go in and with any type of bravado or chest thumping or anything like that. It's legitimately to be in these very historic locations and to tell an interesting paranormal story if we can get it.
So one of the things that you hear a lot, that I didn't hear any mention of in either your videos of you guys out there or when you're talking just now, is you hear a lot of people talking about physiological impact, environmental impact. So, oh, we got a chill. Oh, it suddenly got cold in here. That's one of the things people often discount as being psychosomatic entirely. I haven't heard you mention anything about that. I haven't heard you comment on like temperature gauging, that sort of thing. Is that, in your experience, opinion at this point, psychosomatic, or is that like a real thing that you have experienced? Combination? Where does that fall?
And that's a great question. And absolutely, we have experienced that. The cold chills are absolutely a thing. We've felt that in numerous locations. Again, when we go into a location, we do kind of set those boundaries, if you will. We say, you are not allowed to touch us. You're not allowed to harm us in any way unless we give you permission to touch us. And so, like, there'll be times where I'll be sitting on the floor and I'll say to a reported child spirit, my hand is here if you want to take it. And I've had cold chills go across my hand like something has touched it. There's been numerous times where I'll say, if you're here, pull my pant leg. My pant leg does get pulled. Not every time, but there has been times when that has happened. We were in the West Virginia State Penitentiary down in the boiler room, which is where what they called the hole. And there was a very well-known murder that took place in there between inmates. A guy by the name of R.D. Wall was killed down in that location because he was considered to be a snitch. And so we're all standing there. And we said, R.D. Wall, are you here? And Michelle has really long hair. And she said, something's pulling my hair. And as we looked, you could see her hair get pulled up and then it just fell back down. So we have been touched. We have felt those cold chills. We have had things roll on us or move on us when we've asked them to. So there are physical manifestations that we have seen and that we have felt. But again, it's not something like, oh my gosh, I just got scratched and it burned so bad. Nothing like that has, and we've been to pretty much the quote unquote bucket list locations of every paranormal investigator we've gone to. Lizzie Borden, Villisca Ax Murder House, St. Augustine Lighthouse. We've been to these locations, and for us, we've never felt anything malicious.
So, and that kind of, you went to all of these places and you've consistently found that there is something there that you can explain. One of the things that I noticed in your videos is that it seems to be that some of the times when you're engaging, whatever it is that you're engaging with is responsive. So you
Mhm.
could say, so there's the one where you're in one of the murder houses and you said, why are you here? Who are you? And they're like, they killed us.
Something
They
like that.
murdered
Yeah.
us and we're stuck here. Like,
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact language, but it was basically the gist. And I was like, I mean, fair play. Um, and
Right.
but there were other places that you've gone and you've recorded, and it's obviously something that happened a long time ago
Mhm.
that had nothing to do with the current. And so
Correct.
it's almost like a scene is being replayed that you can't
Correct.
see.
Mhm.
Um, so do you have classifications for those situations, for what that looks like? And if so, what are those classifications? What have you seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two types of quote unquote hauntings. The first one is what we call intelligent. And to your point, those are spirit activity that we can capture that is in response to something that we do, that the entity is aware that we're there and it's responding to us. So two examples from the Lizzie Borden house. When we went to the Lizzie Borden house, again, the first thing that we do when we walk over that threshold is we turn on our voice recorders. So even if we're, schlepping in our luggage, our voice recorders are going because you never know what you're going to capture. So on that investigation, there was 5 of us, all females, and 3 of us were upstairs, and Jenny and Michelle were down in the parlor area where Andrew Borden was killed. And so they're just talking, and we had our voice recorders going, and we had already set up a stationary camera in that room as well. So you see Jenny and Michelle talking, and they're just talking about the day. And we captured a man's voice saying, "I'm standing right here next to you." And that is intelligent. It, to us, it sees them. It's trying to engage with them. Neither one of them heard it in the moment, but we did capture it on the voice recorder. Fast forward about an hour later, Jenny and Cara are sitting in that same room, and they're talking about the differences between the Villisca Ax Murder House, which we had investigated previous, and the Lizzie Borden house. And they're just talking about, how one is bigger, blah, blah, blah. And Cara says, either way, being axed to death would be a horrible way to go. And we captured a man's voice saying it was. And so again, extremely intelligent. So those are what we call intelligent hauntings. We do have what we call residual hauntings. And to your point, the best way that I can explain those is if you think of a vinyl record player and it has a scratch on it, every time that scratch hits the needle, it's going to blip. And that's what essentially what a residual haunting is. Every time there is an anniversary or something that triggers that response, you're going to, in some cases, get an answer. And an example of that is we were investigating the Ma Barker house in Central Florida. And this was the scene of the 1935 shootout between Ma and Fred Barker and members of the FBI. Now, Soul Sisters Paranormal was the first team to investigate this location. And we set up an entire house full of stuff on the anniversary of the shootout. So the shootout happened on January 15th, 1935. And so on the 83rd anniversary, the eve of it, we set up voice recorders, stationary objects, night vision video cameras, and then we locked the house and we left. We had complete control of this environment because the house sits on about 40 acres by itself in the middle of the Central Florida forest. There's no power to it. There's no water to it. So no light pollution or anything like that. And so again, this would have been 83 years prior to the day. So as we listened and watched the video and the audio that we captured at about 5:30 in the morning on January 16th, which would have been the exact time the shootout started, we captured 2 voices. The first one said, "Freddie." The next one said, "Yeah, Ma." And the first one said, "Get ready." And I think that actually happened 83 years prior. I think those were the words that they said when the shootout happened. And that's residual. It wasn't in response to anything that we did or said. It was just there in the air because of the energy that's there. So that's probably the best example I can give of that.
That's a fantastic example. It's incredible. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So how does Soul Sisters become the go-to for, the Ma Barker house is like, hey, we should probably have somebody out here at some point. Like, how does that happen from you and your sisters yucking around and like all but taking a bet from a family friend? How do we
Right.
go from there to being like the people that get to have these opportunities?
Oh, a lot of people, they find us on Facebook or find us on YouTube, and they do reach out to us. For the Mom Barker investigation, we actually asked. So we grew up in Marion County, which is where Ocklawaha, Florida is located. And again, the shootout happened in 1935, but, we grew up, from the time we were born, because we would pass that property to go to get the mail and go into town. And so, my parents would say that's where Ma Barker died, or my grandparents would say, we remember when all of this happened and stuff like that. And so we grew up hearing about that. And so in 2016, just a second. When the shootout, after the shootout happened, the home stayed in the family that owned it up until 2016, and they maintained it in the condition that it was in 1935. So when you walk in there today, there's bullet holes in the wall, there's bullet holes in the furniture, the sconces, the hardwood, all of it is original to 1935. In 2016, they decided that they were going to sell the property, and the new owner was going to demolish the house. He didn't want it. And so Marion County, Florida put it on a barge and floated it across Lake Weir about 4 miles away. And they put it up on about 40 acres by itself. Again, no pollution of any kind next to it. And so when that happened, I approached Marion County and said, will you please allow us to investigate this location? And they graciously allowed us to do so. After that experience, I was so taken with the house that I became a docent there for about a year, and just was in that house constantly. So I would go in the morning and open up and say, hey, Ma, hey, Fred. And you would hear a knock and response sometimes, or you'd hear footsteps or something would clank and you'd know that they were there. But yeah, it's a great location. I absolutely love that investigation.
That's amazing. And I love just the moxie of it, that like you were just like, you know what? I want to go do that. And then they said yes. It's amazing what people will say yes to because
Oh yeah.
nobody's ever thought to ask.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And you have to ask. What's the worst that can happen? They say no, and you just go find another place. But they said yes. And the great thing about that, in our minds, because the reason Soul Sisters is how it is because of the historical component of what we do. Like I said, we go to these locations and get to have a very tactile experience with that history. We get to walk on the Lizzie Borden floors. We get to climb the steps of the St. Augustine Lighthouse, or go into Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary and stay the night. Not a lot of people do that. So to be able to bring that historical narrative to our audience is something that is extremely rewarding for us. And so when we did the Ma Barker investigation, after we released that video, we were getting calls from TV stations, radio stations, the newspaper, really asking us what it was like and why we do what we do. But the most fascinating thing was, so many people in that community said, I've lived here my entire life and I never knew that happened here. And it just kind of blew my mind. It's like, in 1935, the national spotlight was on this little town. J. Edgar Hoover was here, and this is where really the end of the gangster era happened after this shootout. And so to me, it's just absolutely fascinating to bring those historical stories to the forefront and then have people say, I never knew about that. Thank you for, enlightening me on those historical facts. And that's really what compels us to keep going and doing what we're doing.
that's so cool. Are there hauntings that you guys have kind of got together and you've said, look, this thing is really famous, but hard pass? That sounds like something that is more or nefarious, or like, do you have a list of no-goes, or is nope, you just bring it? Like there's not
Yeah.
no challenge too big, Soul Sisters got this?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually locations that are international that we would love to go to.
That was gonna be my next
Yeah.
question. You guys have done the bucket list of America, so like what's next for the Soul Sister World Tour? Where you like, I lived for 10.5 years in the UK. I know there's like half of the UK is
Oh,
haunted. So
I love London. There's so many locations. If I could get an investigation at Westminster Abbey, I think that would just be, amazing. But Leap Castle in Ireland is one place we'd love to go to. The Monte Cristo Plantation in Australia. We've actually been as tourists there, but not as investigators. So I'd love to get back there and investigate. And but again, even the small little lesser known tales, the pubs over there in England, just finding one of those and telling the story of, because I love American history. I love this country and the history that it has, but it obviously does not have the longevity that someplace like UK has. So to
yeah.
go over there and just find, someplace in Oxford, or in Leeds or somewhere like that, and just be able to tell that story and bring it to a larger audience would just be fascinating for us. But right now, the travel is the kind of the way it is still. Doing stuff here in the U.S. is absolutely thrilling.
So one of my favorite tourist traps in the entire US is the Winchester Mystery House. I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Oh yeah.
I cannot tell you how much I love that place. Every time my parents lived in San Jose for years, and every time we were like, "What should we do this afternoon? Let's go!" It's my favorite. It's my favorite. We had a favorite tour guide. It was ridiculous. Like it was my favorite. it is ostensibly, it purports to be haunted.
Mhm.
Have you guys done an investigation at the Winchester Mystery House?
We have not. We have not gotten out to California yet as investigators. That is absolutely a place that we would love to go to. The farthest west that we have gotten is Villisca, Iowa. You know, once, because for us, it really is kind of about logistics. You know,
Sure.
we are, yeah, we are professionals in other things. This isn't, you know, our paying gig really. So it is about logistics, and then we drive to all of the locations that we go to.
Oh,
So yeah, because we do have a lot of equipment as we spoke about
that makes
before,
sense. Yeah.
and so we really do make a road trip out of it, a girls trip out of it. And so finding time to get all of that together. So going out west is a little bit difficult because we're you know, in Florida and Tennessee and in Washington DC. So to get all that out there is a little tedious, but we're working on it. We've got a couple of things planned, and hopefully California will be in the works here very soon.
I mean, I feel like you could spend a month in NOLA, right? Like just with
Oh
all
yeah.
of like half
Oh
of
yeah.
NOLA is haunted.
Hmm. Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and I don't think that anybody would even begin to disagree. Like even total skeptics, nobody's going to argue that NOLA's got ghosts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, you'll believe after you leave there.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's certainly plenty to keep you busy before California, but I hope you make it out to the Winchester Mystery
Oh,
House
absolutely.
because I would love to see that episode. I've always been, like I said, special place in my heart.
Well, if we go, you're going with us.
I'm
So
in
yeah, there you
for the
go.
first
So
5 seconds, and then I will be the one that sits in the car park because no, 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 no. And on top of that, so I'm native, right? So I feel like it's supposed to be haunted by my people. I feel
Mhm.
like they would be like, traitorous bitch, walk up here with white. No, 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 no. There's a really good chicken place around the corner, Kristy. I'll wait for y'all there.
There you go.
I'll drive your
Well,
getaway
well,
car.
yeah, well, you know, we'll hook you up with a walkie-talkie. You can sit outside and just listen.
Perfect. Perfect. That is exactly the kind of thing I look for. But it is like, it was funny. My husband is English. And we went to the Winchester Mystery House, and our favorite tour guide, in like all the movies, like, and this is exactly how it was over 50 years ago, or like over 100 years ago. And my husband and I are like, keep walking, my man, keep walking. Our house is 250 years old and has a flint wall from the 1500s, but that's cool. 50 years, that's long, my man, that's long. Got you, boo.
There there you go.
So yes, I totally understand what you mean about like the history, and I would think that that would make what you do really complicated as well, going to those areas because you've got layers, right?
Mhm.
You would have like one on top of the other. So that kind of brings me to one of the things that you hear a lot about in the pop culture version of paranormal investigation is that there are places where the veil is thinner or places that are sticky from a spirit perspective. So ley lines,
Mhm.
nexuses of ley lines, that sort of thing. Have you guys done any research into that? And is that bunk or is it about specific areas? Like what is your finding there?
You know, again, it does go back to kind of what your belief structure is. You know, I do know about ley lines. I haven't researched them in very much in depth, but I know what they are, and there is that theory. For us, the locations that we've gone to, I think if you go in with the respect level and really just try to approach these spirits as the humans that they were, because the very core of human existence is to be recognized. Nobody wants to go through life not being seen, and I think that's the same thing with these spirits. And so the locations that we've gone to, all of them have not been on ley lines, and they're not, you know, what I would consider closer or, you know, further away from any veil that I am aware of. But it's to go in with that respect and actually sit down and say, I'm here to tell your story. Let me do that for you if you will communicate with me. That's really where we seem to be getting our responses. And I think it's the fact that we go in and we actually listen. You know, a lot of people hear, but not a lot of people actually listen. And I think that's why we've been so successful in what we do. But I don't really subscribe to the fact that, there's some places that are closer to the veil, or that the witching hours at 3 a.m., right? I mean, 3 a.m. Eastern time, Pacific time, Greenwich time, whatever. I mean, what is that? And so for me, that I've never really subscribed to that in depth. But uh, I just feel that if you go in and actually try to communicate with these spirits, then in some cases you'll get a response.
So I would think that I totally hear all the things that you're saying, and I'm thinking of just processing it. That if you think that particularly with the kids, that
Mhm.
it is they don't know how to cross over, that would hurt my heart. That would hurt my heart. It hurts my heart just hearing and thinking about it, right?
Mhm.
As a
Yeah.
mom, I like the fact that something that when bad things happen to little people, like already that
Mhm.
hurts my mom heart. And the idea that they would then be stuck
Mhm.
in that place and not able to move on to whatever is their next stage. Um, that's that's really an emotional kind of thing to think about. You're a great person, obviously. Like you're obviously a kind person who is compassionate. So there must be a part of you that wants to help, that wants to do something. What does that look like? Have you guys tried to help with any
Mhm.
of them? And if so, does anything come of that?
And that's a great question. For us, there are people in the paranormal community that will assist spirits in crossing over. Priests and shamans and demonologists to some extent. They are trained and versed to do that. That's not what we do. We go in and find evidence of their existence. If there's a location like a private owner, a private residence, or private business owner, and we find that there is a spirit there that they want removed or crossed over, then we have people in our network that we will call to assist on that case. When we go to a location that is more quote unquote commercial, like the Winchester Mystery House or the St. Augustine Lighthouse, that's not our place. We don't feel that we've got the authority, nor would we try to do that there, because we don't own it. We will report to the owners of what we captured. For example, we were at Hales Bar Dam, which is in Guild, Tennessee, and this dam is reportedly extremely haunted. We've been there several times, and we've captured compelling evidence every time we've gone. But there was one instance where we were this dam. Underneath the dam, there's a series of tunnels, and so in the 1950s, I believe, there was an accident, and some kids that were in the tunnel were killed. And so when we were there, Michelle and Cara were sitting down in one of those tunnels, and Michelle asked the question, "Why are you still here? Why haven't you moved on?" And we captured a child's voice saying, "I can't, I'm stuck." And again, extremely heartbreaking when we heard it, because we didn't hear it in the moment. It's just when we went back and reviewed our evidence. And so we reported that to the owners of the dam. And again, if that's something that they want to pursue to try to assist that spirit, then that's what they can do. But for us, we have not done that.
That feels like that's heavy to
Mhm.
carry because you're every time you're doing an investigation, those it sounds like that kind of thing is coming up a lot.
Mhm.
How do you process that? Like how do you keep yourself from taking that to heart and getting overwhelmed with that grief?
And that's a great question. I've never been asked that before, but it is. It's one of those things that you do feel deeply. Each of these locations that we've gone to, whether we've gone to them once or multiple times, they do stick with you. When you hear in the Lizzie Borden house, when we said it was a horrible way to die, and somebody says it was, that's heavy, right? So it is something that you sit back and you think about a lot. Obviously, what we're doing, and it's kind of morbid to say, but death is always on our mind, right? It is something that we think about. But for me, in doing this for the length of time that we've done this, and as we get further into what we're doing, it's almost peaceful for me to know that we do exist after this, that something is going to occur after this. We don't just cease to be, because that to me would be terrifying, to know that we would just cease to be. And so for me, every time we find an answer, even though it may not be as, as joyous that we would think some of the responses that we're getting are, like I said before, are kind of deep. But for me, it does give me hope that there is something after this. So we do think about this a lot. We talk about it a lot. There are some things where we won't put it on video if we capture something that we just feel that is not necessary to put on the video as evidence. So we've done that on several occasions, especially in a private residence or business investigation. But it is one of those things that you kind of carry with you and you think about, and it just kind of becomes part of you.
That's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
So on that chipper note,
But on the flip side, real quick, on the flip side, it makes you more protective of these locations, right? So I've made a positive connection with those spirits in Fort Mifflin or the Exchange Hotel or in the jail that we're currently running. And so it makes you very protective of those locations, and it almost becomes a part of you, to the point where, what can we do to help with these preservation efforts, right? Because these do have to be preserved. And so I think that's probably one of the better things that really has come out of this, is the fact that we do feel a very big connection to all of these.
I love that. That is much more positive spins. Thank you. I can tell you've made that switch for people before, if not only for yourself. I cannot believe this. It has been almost an hour that we have been talking.
Wow.
I know, right? What have we not talked about that you want to make sure that we cover?
Really just, like I said, we're Soul Sisters Paranormal, and you can find us at www.soulsistersparanormal.com. All of our videos are on Facebook and on YouTube as well, both under Soul Sisters Paranormal. And I know one of the questions that you generally asked is, how do you make money at this? And I can tell you that we don't really make money as paranormal investigators. We do sell merchandise, and that really kind of funds our travels, but most of what we do is all self-funded. The gear and all of that's self-funded. But what I have been able to do with this is, late last year, my best friend and I, she's also a paranormal investigator, we opened a museum in a haunted location in Huntsville, Tennessee. We opened inside of a jail that was built in 1904. It was in operation until 2008. So because of that, we allow paranormal investigators to come in. You can rent the jail for the night, and you can do paranormal research there. We also have general day tours for those that just want to go through an old jail and have. Yeah, there you go. We have a very cool crime and punishment museum inside, a lot of artifacts from Scott County, Tennessee, a lot of interesting stories and stuff like that. So through the paranormal, I was able to, again, meet my best friend and really start this business venture. So that has really become my focus financially right now through the paranormal.
That is so cool. So we'll have links to all of that stuff in the show notes so that people can get to it. Thank you so much. This has been so enlightening and interesting to me. You have no idea. My husband is he's been trying to get me to go do one of those. So in the UK, in the before COVID times, one of the big things that they did from they had a bunch of places that would do haunted date nights. And so you would have dinner and then a hotel and then a room in a hotel that was haunted. He always wanted to go, Kristy. And I was always like, bitch, why? If you just don't want to sleep, we don't need to pay. It's okay.
There you go.
We can sit home and be scared. It's cool.
There you go.
Need to go do that.
Real quick, I did do the Jack the Ripper tour over there in London one time, and it was fascinating. But the scary part about it was, at the end of the tour, the very last, kill stop, the guy just said, "Okay, we're done," and everybody dispersed. And my sister and I are just kind of standing there in the dark, where do we go? What do we do now? So
our country in the dark in a dodgy part of town. This seems terrible.
But it was a fascinating walk. I love London and England and everything about that. So, no, this was a great conversation. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me tonight.
No, I loved it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Kristy. You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michelle Olivier, and hey, I want your job.